Okay, imagine this. You get this giant cube, right,
Mhm.
draped in black velvet, and around it, just this river of people flowing, all in white robes,
Millions of them.
millions, converging on this one spot in Mecca. It's the Kaaba, the absolute center of Islam. And it just, well, it immediately makes you ask some big questions.
Huh.
Like, what's the secret? What makes this
Okay.
old structure such a powerful magnet, not just for religion, but, economically too?
Right. And other tough questions arise as well.
Exactly. Why does something like child marriage, which feels so out of place today, still persist in some Muslim communities?
A deeply troubling issue, yes.
And then there's the big one,
Yeah.
the connection between Islam and terrorism. What's the real story there? It's so often misunderstood.
These are absolutely the key questions we need to grapple with, and that's what we're setting out to do today, really dive deep and try to unpack them.
Okay.
Our main source for this exploration is a pretty detailed transcript from a YouTube channel, Toji Kori, that translates to Ancient World, and it gives us a really broad look at Islam's beginnings, its core beliefs, and, well, its impact through history right up to now.
Okay, so let's start right back with that image you mentioned, Mecca, the Kaaba. The source really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It does. Mecca, way out in western Saudi Arabia. Its location wasn't just random. Historically, it was a major hub on those ancient trade routes.
Ah, okay. So it had importance even before Islam.
Precisely. Its position made it a natural crossroads, a place where goods and, importantly, ideas were exchanged. That pre-existing significance definitely laid some groundwork.
And when you talk about its role now,
Yeah.
the Grand Mosque there, it's just huge. The transcript says 356,000 square meters.
Massive.
And the cost, apparently getting close to $1 trillion for expansions and upkeep. That's
Yeah.
hard to even imagine.
It really is. All that gleaming white marble, the domes, the minarets. It reflects the incredible devotion and, frankly, the resources directed towards this most sacred site.
Yeah. And there's this concept of the haram, right? The sacred sanctuary around the Kaaba.
Yes, absolutely critical. Within that zone, violence is completely forbidden. And as the transcript notes, it's also closed off to non-Muslims. There are checkpoints, religious police enforcing that.
Really underscores the sanctity of the place. The source also mentions Mecca is one of 3 holy cities in Islam.
That's right. You have Medina, which is where the first Islamic government, you could say, was established. Very important.
Okay.
And then Jerusalem, revered because of the Prophet Muhammad's night journey, the Isra and Miraj.
So each city has its own distinct significance.
Exactly. Mecca, birthplace of Muhammad, focus of the Hajj pilgrimage. It's the ultimate center point. Medina gave the early Muslims their political and social structure. And Jerusalem, well, its connection to earlier prophets and that incredible journey gives it huge spiritual weight.
Okay, let's dig into the Hajj itself, the pilgrimage. Our source traces it back to Muhammad's own pilgrimage in 632 AD and the rituals. Circling the Kaaba 7 times, kissing the black stone, or more often now just gesturing towards it.
Right. The crowds make that difficult.
Yeah. Then praying at Abraham's station, running between the hills Safa and Marwa, staying at Mina and Arafat, the stoning ritual, the animal sacrifice. It's quite a sequence.
And every single one of those actions is loaded with symbolism. It connects the pilgrims directly to key moments in Islamic history, and especially to the trials of figures like Abraham and his family.
So it's more than just copying what Muhammad did.
Much more. The transcript highlights this well. It's about remembering God's challenges to Abraham's family, their faith, their submission.
And it all happens in a specific time frame, right? The first 5 days of the 12th month of the Islamic lunar calendar.
Correct. And completing it earns the pilgrim the title Haji. It signifies a real spiritual achievement.
A kind of spiritual milestone.
You could say that. It's seen as a deeply transformative journey, a chance for purification and renewal.
Now, the Kaaba itself, its history goes back further than Islam, doesn't it? The transcript says it's attributed to Abraham and Ishmael.
That's the tradition, yes.
And at one point, it held over 360 idols. That tells you something about Mecca before Islam, huh?
It really does. The Kaaba was already a major religious center in pre-Islamic Arabia, a focal point for many different tribes and their gods. Muhammad's act of clearing out those idols, that wasn't just religious. It was a massive political shift, too, consolidating everything under one God.
So it went from being this multi-god shrine to the ultimate symbol of Allah, the one God, and the direction of prayer, the Qibla, for Muslims everywhere.
Exactly.
And the source mentions this kind of quirky detail about its location and the golden ratio, comparing distances to the North and South Poles. Is that Significant?
It's generally seen more as a fascinating observation, perhaps reflecting the order in God's creation rather than a core theological point itself. Interesting, but not doctrine.
Got it. Physically, it's described as, well, a cube, about 13 meters high on a marble base, and the corners are named after places.
Yeah, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and the corner with the black stone, likely reflecting old trade routes and the general orientation known back then.
And the black stone, that's fascinating. Set in a corner, about 1.5 meters up. It's smaller than you might think, maybe 30 centimeters across, in a silver frame. And the tradition of kissing it, now mostly gesturing because of the crowds, but the belief about its origin that it was white and turned black from human sin.
That belief gives it powerful symbolism, doesn't it? Connecting it to human fallibility and the need for forgiveness.
Then you have these incredible golden doors, northeast side, 3 meters high, 2 wide, made of 286 kilos of gold.
Quite something.
And the kiswa, that famous black silk cover with the gold and silver Quranic verses embroidered on it, replaced every year. A 1,400-year-old tradition.
The kiswa is such a potent visual symbol of the Kaaba's holiness and the community's devotion.
The source also mentions the Station of Abraham, that gold frame supposedly holding his footprints.
Yes.
And Al-Hatim, that semicircular wall, which used to be part of the Kaaba.
Correct. Historically part of the original structure attributed to Abraham.
And, of course, the well of Zamzam, the holy water source. Pilgrims drink from it for blessings.
Zamzam water holds a really special place in Islamic tradition, linked to miracles and believed to have blessed properties.
And inside the Kaaba, access is super restricted, right? Only certain Muslim leaders.
Very restricted.
But the description is surprisingly simple. Wooden pillars, lamps, marble floor, a small cabinet for perfumes. They clean it twice a year with Zamzam water and rose water.
And the Prophet himself prayed inside. Though inside, you just pray towards the center. It really is the ultimate focal point.
The absolute spiritual center.
For Muslims everywhere, yes.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the origins and the core beliefs of Islam itself. The word Islam means submission to God.
And Muslims are those who submit.
It's the world's second largest religion now, 1.8 billion people, about 24% of the global population.
Huge numbers.
And the source makes a really important point here. The vast, vast majority of Muslims are peaceful people.
Absolutely crucial to state that up front, especially given, the stereotypes. The actions of a tiny fringe shouldn't define a whole global community.
Right. The transcript mentions the two main branches. Sunni, the majority, maybe 90%, and Shia. The split originally came down to who should lead after Muhammad died, the caliphate issue.
That was the initial schism, yes, over leadership succession.
And it stresses, again, that extremist groups like ISIS are a tiny, warped fraction, mostly within the Sunni tradition. Have other major differences developed between Sunni and Shia over the centuries, beyond just leadership?
Oh, definitely. While the core beliefs remain the same, centuries have led to distinct interpretations in, say, religious law, the authority given to certain scholars, even some specific rituals. But it's key to remember they share the fundamental tenets of Islam.
Okay. Then there's jihad, often twisted by terrorists to mean holy war.
Right.
But the source says its main meaning is really an internal spiritual struggle yet.
Okay.
It also mentions Quranic verses about fighting for God's cause, rewards in Paradise chapter 4, verse 74, chapter 52, things like that. And hadith, sayings of the Prophet, describing heavenly rewards. These seem to be the bits extremists latch onto. How do mainstream scholars handle those texts?
Context is everything here. Mainstream scholarship is very clear. Any kind of armed conflict is only permissible under very strict conditions. Self-defense against aggression, correcting grave injustices. And it absolutely forbids harming innocent people. The deeper meaning of jihad as personal striving is what gets deliberately ignored by extremists.
Let's talk about Muhammad himself. Born in Mecca around 570 A.D., from the Hashim family, part of the Quraysh tribe.
A respected lineage.
Orphan young, raised by his grandfather, then his uncle. No formal schooling, interestingly.
Correct.
But he learned a lot through trade journeys, right? To Syria, Palestine, encountering Judaism and Christianity along the way.
Yes, those travels were formative, exposed him to different cultures, existing monotheistic faiths. That surely shaped his thinking.
And he had this reputation, Al-Amin, the trustworthy one. There's that story about him waiting 3 days for a trading partner who was late.
Yeah, that speaks to his integrity, which was widely recognized and really important later on.
The environment back then sounds tough. Harsh desert, nomads. But Mecca was strategically placed for trade.
It was. And the conflicts happening between the big empires, Byzantine and Sasanian, actually disrupted other routes and made Mecca even more important for a while.
Kind of an unexpected boost.
You could say that. This period of flux, Mecca's rising economic importance, it created an environment where new ideas, new leadership could emerge.
Then came his marriage to Khadija in 595 AD. A wealthy merchant, older than him.
15 years older, yes. A very significant marriage.
They gave him financial independence, right? Time to think, to reflect.
Absolutely. They had 7 children. He was monogamous until she died in 619 AD.
After her death, though, he married others. The source mentions 11 wives, and concubines too, and brings up Aisha, his third wife, and her young age at marriage. It links this to the ongoing issue of child marriage in some Muslim communities today. How do mainstream Muslims reconcile that history with modern ethics?
Well, first, the historical context of marriage practices then was very different from today. But the overwhelming consensus among mainstream Muslim scholars and organizations now is that child marriage is wrong. It goes against core Islamic principles of justice, compassion, and well-being. Modern interpretations stress mutual consent, maturity, things essential for a healthy marriage.
Okay, so the actual start of Islam, the first revelation, 610 AD, Muhammad's about 40, he's in the Hira cave.
And the angel Gabriel, Jibril appears, declares him the final prophet of Allah.
That's the foundational moment.
It is the beginning of his prophethood and the start of the Quran being revealed.
The Quran. Muslims believe it's the literal word of God revealed to Muhammad. Since he was illiterate, his companions memorized it, and it was compiled later.
Into the holy book we have today, it covers everything: stories, afterlife, social rules, economics.
That's the ultimate guide.
For Muslims, yes. Studying it, reciting it are acts of worship.
What about Islam's view on life here and now? The source says it's not about denying worldly things.
Not at all. It encourages enjoying life's blessings, family, wealth, harvests, animals. But the key is always keeping faith and obedience to God first for eternal happiness.
And there's a big emphasis on ethics.
Yeah.
Justice, being trustworthy, honoring contracts in business.
Very strong emphasis. Living a good, meaningful life here, but always with an eye on the hereafter and following a clear ethical code.
Muhammad's approach, it built on existing traditions, Judaism and Christianity.
Yes, the Abrahamic faiths.
But the key difference he stressed was that he was a messenger, a human, not divine.
Absolutely fundamental. That's why you generally don't see pictures of him in Islamic tradition. It emphasizes his humanity.
He's the seal of the prophets. The last one. Islam recognizes others before him, right? Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus.
Known in the Quran as Adam, Nuh, Ibrahim, Musa, and Isa.
Yes.
Recognizing them shows this idea in Islam of continuous divine guidance through history, culminating with Muhammad.
The source points out similarities between the Quran and the Bible creation stories. Adam and Eve, or Hawa, Abraham and his sons Ishmael, his male, and Isaac, Ishaq.
Sheer heritage there.
But also key differences. In Islam, Jesus, Isa, isn't God's son, wasn't crucified but raised to heaven.
Right.
And Allah doesn't need a sacrifice for sin. Repentance is enough.
Sincere repentance, yes, that's a core theological difference. The Quran is seen as confirming earlier scriptures, but also correcting where Muslims believe they were changed over time.
Okay, let's look at how Islam spread initially. Back in Mecca, Muhammad's message wasn't popular with everyone.
Definitely not. It threatened the power, the money of the Meccan elite, whose status was tied to all those idols in the Kaaba. Early Muslims faced serious persecution.
A real uphill battle.
It was. His monotheism was a direct challenge to their whole system.
Then comes the night journey, the Isra and Miraj, in 621 AD. This incredible story. Angel Gabriel, the mythical creature Burak.
Taking Muhammad to Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Then ascending through 7 heavens, meeting prophets, seeing paradise and hell, meeting Allah.
And receiving the command for the 5 daily prayers. A hugely significant event for believers. It reinforced his prophethood and established the centrality of prayer.
Then the Hijra, the migration to Medina in 622 AD. That was a huge turning point.
Massive. Fleeing an assassination plot in Mecca.
Right. And Medina needed a leader. They were having internal issues.
So they welcomed Muhammad and his followers. Medina became the first real Islamic community, the start of the Islamic calendar. His leadership there was crucial for organizing and growing the community.
But the conflict with Mecca didn't stop. There were battles. Badri,
a key early Muslim victory. That one had setbacks for the Muslims.
and the Battle of the Trench.
Where they successfully defended Medina, these battles were vital in building the Muslim strength and shifting power in Arabia.
And during this time, they were also dealing with surrounding tribes. Campaigns against Jewish tribes like Kaaba expanding towards Palestine and Syria.
Yes, influence was expanding through various means, including military campaigns.
Leading up to the conquest of Mecca in 630 AD, Muhammad leads a big army, but Mecca surrenders peacefully.
Largely peacefully, yes. A major moment. Islam triumphs in its birthplace. He removes the idols from the Kaaba. It paved the way for unifying Arabia.
The transcript notes he was quite the military leader. 65 campaigns in 10 years, personally led 27.
It shows he was more than just a prophet. He was a capable military and political leader, too.
Then the farewell pilgrimage, 632 AD, his first Hajj, just for Muslims. And this is where he declared Hajj a duty for those who are able. And the symbolism connects back to Abraham, Hagar, Ishmael.
Exactly. Hagar searching for water, that's the Safa and Marwa ritual. Abraham willing to sacrifice Ishmael, remembered in the stoning of Satan pillars and the animal sacrifice.
The way of Abraham, symbolizing faith and submission.
It really cemented the Hajj rituals and reinforced that deep link to the Abrahamic tradition, submission, remembering God's tests.
But then very soon after, June 8th, 632 AD, Muhammad dies. Fever. And he hadn't named a successor.
No designated successor, correct.
What did that mean immediately?
Confusion.
Some initial uncertainty, for sure. But it led pretty quickly to the community choosing Abu Bakr as the first caliph, the leader. That started the period of the caliphate organized leadership.
The Rashidun Caliphate, the rightly guided caliphs Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, 632 to 661 AD. And this period saw incredible expansion.
Astonishingly rapid. Armenia, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, much of the old Persian Sasanian Empire.
Wow. What drove that?
A mix of things. Strong religious belief, effective military organization, and honestly, the weakening state of the neighboring Byzantine and Sasanian empires.
And the expansion didn't stop there. Under the Umayyads and Abbasids later, the empire got huge. 13.4 million square kilometers at its peak.
One of history's largest empires. And the Umayyad, and especially the Abbasid periods, were a golden age for science, culture, philosophy in the Islamic world. Huge contributions.
But the Abbasid Caliphate eventually fell. The Mongols. Yes, the Mongol invasion, the sack of Baghdad in 1258, a devastating blow, marked a major shift in the Islamic world's political map.
Still, the legacy. 1.8 billion Muslims today. And the number of Hajj pilgrims just keeps growing. The source compares 1920, about 58,000 pilgrims, to 2012, over 3 million.
That's a dramatic increase.
Why such growth?
Well, the global Muslim population itself has grown significantly. Plus, travel is just much easier now, communication too. And fundamentally, the deep spiritual draw of the Hajj remains powerful.
Managing those numbers must be an incredible challenge for Saudi Arabia.
Immense. They use a quota system for countries, and they've massively expanded the Grand Mosque. It's got 4 levels now. The logistics are mind-boggling.
And the economic impact. Over $12 billion a year for Saudi Arabia. 20% of their GDP.
It's a huge economic factor. Creates so many jobs, cleaners, caterers, transport, everything needed to support millions of people.
That saying, Meccans don't do business, they serve pilgrims.
It reflects how central the Hajj is to the city's identity and economy. This whole pilgrimage industry has grown up around it.
Maybe not something Muhammad foresaw quite like this.
Perhaps not the scale, but it's a testament to the enduring power of the ritual he established.
Okay, let's bring it to the modern world. The source mentions Islam's early role, like Christianity and Buddhism, as an anchor for maybe the lower classes, the marginalized.
Offering spiritual solace, community, yes. Though they took different paths later regarding state power versus grassroots movements.
And it talks about Islam's dual nature. It's a religion, but also a political system. The Quran has over 500 laws, like a comprehensive guide. The source even compares it to a closed OS, like iOS.
An interesting analogy.
Suggesting this all-in-one framework helped it spread and hold together.
Yeah.
How has that played out? Both unifying but maybe challenging in modern times.
Well, that comprehensive nature certainly provided a strong framework for early communities, laws, ethics, social structure. It fostered unity. But yeah, in the modern world, with all its diversity and change, applying that framework leads to debates. How do you interpret traditional teachings for today's realities? It's an ongoing process.
And this structure faces challenges, especially with the rise of fundamentalism, Salafism after World War II. The idea seems to be Reject outside influence, go back to the original sources, interpret the Quran literally. What caused that rise?
It's complex, often a reaction against colonialism, rapid modernization, perceived Western cultural encroachment. These movements see a return to a selective, literal reading of early texts as the solution to modern problems.
And tragically, that approach gets twisted by extremist groups to justify terrorism, misusing jihad.
A total distortion.
Even though the Quran itself, as the source points out, condemns killing innocents, chapter 5, verse 32, and hadith hold people accountable for innocent deaths.
Absolutely. The core ethical teachings flatly forbid terrorism. Extremists cherry-pick and distort verses to fit their violent agenda, which is rejected by the vast majority of Muslims.
It's just so important to keep saying that. The actions of a tiny few shouldn't tarnish 1.8 billion people. The Lee Kuan Yew quote in the source makes that distinction clearly. Islam versus extremist ideology.
A crucial distinction. Lumping everyone together is inaccurate, unjust, and harmful.
The source finishes by noting the internal debates within Islam, conservatives versus modernizers, and it stresses how important it is to treat moderate Muslims with tolerance and goodwill, to empower them against extremism.
That's key. Supporting moderate voices is vital for countering extremism and promoting a more accurate understanding of Islam today.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive really shows Islam is incredibly complex. Rich history, huge global impact, still growing, and so much diversity within it.
Absolutely. It's shaped civilizations, inspired art and science, and guides billions of lives. A profound force in the world.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. Given everything we've talked about, the history, the different interpretations, how can we all do a better job of navigating the information out there? How do we get past the simplistic, often misleading narratives we see in the media and form genuinely informed, nuanced views about Islam?
That's definitely something we're thinking about long after this discussion ends.